Welcome everyone to the podcast. I'm your host today, Cadet Master Sergeant Harden, and our guest,
Chief Master Sergeant Cole. I've been in Civil Air Patrol for about 2 years now. I was a basic at Florida Wing Encampment 2022-2023 winter, and then that same year I staffed here as Alpha Flight Sergeant, and now I'm back for encampment number 3.
So we went from basic to flight sergeant to command chief.
Yes, Command Chief.
So can you explain that role a little bit?
Yeah, so as Command Chief, I'm basically an extra NCO on scene. So I'm directly under the Deputy of Operations, and I mentor and train NCOs and also help make sure that encampment runs smoothly.
So as a cadet cadre, you guys have started working way before encampment even started, correct?
Yes.
So what would you say are some of the improvements from last encampment and this encampment?
Yeah, prep work and training, we have had so many improvements. We have flight plans, we have laid out goals, we have TLPs that the line staff can do. Flight sergeants and flight commanders have received very specific training for their roles and have been working very hard to make this year's encampment the best yet.
So let's just say we have a little bit of guests from last year. So can we have you guys come in? Introduce yourselves.
Thank you. My name is Second Lieutenant Joshua Cupstid. I am the Administration Officer in Command, and you are?
I'm Cadet Chief Master Sergeant Calloway, and I am the Public Affairs OIC Media Director for this encampment.
That's my boss. So do you guys want to talk about what your roles were last year and like the difference between last year and this year, as well as like the organization and things of that nature?
Yeah, so last year I was a flight sergeant along with Cole. I was Charlie Flight Sergeant, and this year as an admin OIC, it's a lot different. So I went from being in a line staff position with a bunch of cadets now to being in a position where I am basically making sure that the line staff have everything that they need to work efficiently. So I've gone from being on line staff teaching cadets to teaching line staff how to inspect and how to do all of that good stuff and making sure that they get everything they need. So that's kind of the main difference from last year that I'm seeing. That's it's kind of hard to wrap your head around because you're in such a different position.
Yeah.
So I was also a flight sergeant last year with Lieutenant Cupstid and Chief Cole, and I was Echo Flight Sergeant, best flight. So like they said, I was a flight sergeant working with the flight and the basics. But this year, I'm now working as the Public Affairs Media Director. So I manage all of the pictures and videos coming into our office. I make sure they're processed properly and get posted to our various social media platforms. And I also manage the posting of the podcast and also the newsletters. So there's lots of different things that I do that were not near what I did last year. So it's very interesting being in a different role.
So I kind of ran out of questions because you guys are just that awesome. But how would you say that your positions last year helped you with managing what you do this year?
Yeah, from last year, I'm very used to an intense environment and having to think on my toes. I'd say the biggest skill that I gained was critical thinking and adaptability, which I have definitely been able to apply this year with schedule changes being frequent. Having that adaptability and that prior training has allowed me to stay calm and help guide NCOs through those situations.
I will say for myself, it's also adaptability because being in an administration officer in command position, you oversee everything that happens on the paperwork side and making sure that everything gets done and everything's where it needs to be in terms of paperwork and, scheduling and inspection scores and awards and all that good stuff. And scheduling will change and paperwork would be printed out when you're halfway across the camp and you're not at a printer. I would also say adaptability and the ability to work in an environment like that.
So like Chief Cole said, last year as a flight sergeant, things were very intensive. You had to be very strict with basics, had to manage your bearing at all times, and it was a very stressful environment. And now with public affairs, it's almost relaxing being able to work in an office, being able to talk normally with those who are under you. But it's definitely still a stressful environment, but it's less intensive and there's a bit more freedom to how you are able to manage things. So I would say I prefer this position more.
Yeah, and I will say one thing that is a lot different than last year for us two is the fact that now we have desks.
So walkie-talkies this year?
We have walkie-talkies, we have desks, and last year we were lowly little flight sergeants making sure that the cadets were doing what they needed to be doing.
Yes, Commander.
So, yeah, desks and walkie-talkies, that's a big change.
So what's your advice to all the basics this year?
For all the basics this year, I'd keep an open mind. As I said, we did a lot of training this year in preparation for encampment, and a part of that was making sure everything was standardized. And so line staff has been reading 6033, reading 39-1, which are our regulations that we use at Civil Air Patrol, and they have mastered and memorized everything in those publications. And so they're going to be giving that information to cadets, and a lot of it's going to be different than what they were taught at their home squadron. And so keeping an open mind and being ready to learn and to apply that knowledge is what I would suggest to cadets.
That's great. Basically what I would say is don't take anything personal. It's a very intense environment, and you're going to have people raising your voices at you, and you're going to have people ordering you around, and it all serves a training purpose, and there's all a specific reason that we do it. And it is not because we want to treat airmen with, lower respect than officers. I mean, it's all for training to become an officer. And to become an officer, you have to be able to know, everything pretty much. And, this is the way we teach. We have to drill it into your minds, and we have to make sure that you understand everything and you get the most out of it. So don't take anything personal. It's a really intense environment, and it all serves a training purpose. So, yeah.
Yeah, so when you first get to encampment, it can be really difficult as a basic, and with all the intensive training, you might feel like you want to go home. But honestly, one thing that can help is just looking towards the end of encampment and everything that you've learned, and also looking towards your next encampment as well. There's so many different roles that you can serve in. You can stay in the line staff route and keep it intense like Command Chief Cole, or you can go over to support side and be a bit more relaxed as an admin OIC or a public affairs OIC. I am not relaxed, just so you know. Maybe relaxing isn't the right word, but you do get shares, though. As staff, it's always stressful, but you get to choose how that stress comes, and I think that's one thing to look forward to, is having that freedom.
All right. So my advice to everyone is let this encampment be an opportunity for you to grow as a cadet, learn all the lessons, make the mistakes that you need to make, and after encampment, start promoting, so that when you come back next year, you can take a larger role, you can take or leadership role, and so after encampment, you need to be a lieutenant, and I need to be a chief, guys.
One thing I will say is, promoting to get into a bigger role is great, but advice, make sure that you're learning all that you can through your promotions. You have learned to lead books, and you have quizzes and everything for a reason. So don't promote just to get a bigger role, promote to learn. And that is advice for your entire life. So, yeah. Also, I will be a first lieutenant, hopefully, within 2 days.
Okay.
So yeah. Getting it approved.
Okay. All right, everyone. That's our time today. Live from Camp Shelby, it's Mississippi Wing Podcast.